Welcome, Campfire Crew. Let's get it on. Home Invaders by Suman. The story happened when I was 12 years old. I'm a female and 25. The story I'm about to tell you might not be scary to most, but for me and my parents, it was. I remember it was a Saturday night around 9 or 10 during summertime. I owned one dog at the time. His name is Benny. My parents decided that night that they felt like going for a walk around the block, walking Benny and asking me whether I wanted to join them. I said no because I wanted to play PWI on my PC. My parents were okay with leaving me alone since the walk wouldn't take longer than 30 minutes tops. As my parents would get dressed to leave the house, I logged into PWI and looked around in my guild and global chat to see if anyone was on. For some reason, no one was, so I decided to join my parents. I got dressed, I put Benny on his leash, and we all left. I'd like to mention that I lived in an apartment building that had 10 floors, and we lived on the very first floor. I'm not sure how to explain it, but you have the basement of the building and then the first row of apartments. Basically, you enter the building and are already facing the apartments. I lived in the very first one. I remember always hating that because whoever would pass by our door, we would hear them at any time of the day or night. Whoever was lurking at night, we would hear them. It was somewhat eerie to live on floor 0. Anyway, we left the house and my dad closed the door. We had 3 keyholes and a steel bar that would block the door from the inside. The bar covered half the door. Precautions were my father's obsession. We left the building and enjoyed our walk. After 15 minutes, we realized the wind had changed from warm summer wind to incoming storm wind. My mom makes the call to go back home, as Benny already did his duties, so we went back. We opened the building door, climbed the 5 stairs to our door and attempt to open it. And my father does the following: unlocks the first 3 locks, and then attempts to unlock the metal bar that holds the door locked. At that moment, my father pauses, turns around at us with the most serious face I've ever seen on him, and whispers to us to call the police and ring the neighbor's door. My mom went to the second apartment and the neighbor, who I'll call Ted, come out and ask my father what happened. My dad whispered to him, covering the see-through hole of the door, "Someone is in our house. Here they are holding the door. Please stay here with my family and attempt to open it. I'll be right back." After saying that, my father rushes off all by himself around the building in the dark. I say dark because we didn't have a streetlight on that side of the building facing the block garden. My dad disappeared into the darkness, and I went outside too, not following him too much, but only to see if he was in trouble. He's my dad, don't judge me. As soon as I got out, I heard him shout, "Hey, you! Come back! Who the hell do you think you are? I called the police!" At the same time I hear him shout, I looked at Ted, who managed to open the door and enter the house. I went after them and entered my house. It no longer felt like home. In just 15 minutes while we were walking, the home invaders made a complete mess of our house. All of our shelves and wardrobes were pulled out, our clothes scattered all over the house. Benny's dry food was all over the floor, indicating they must have tripped in his bowls, probably not knowing we owned a dog. But what scared me the most was how organized they were. I say they because after seeing the disaster that was left behind, we knew it was impossible for just one person to hold the door, steal, and organize what they were going to take with them. I say organized because the thieves put into our living room, all packed and ready, what they wanted but didn't end up stealing. On the couch they placed our laptops, one of our TVs, my father's collection of coins, our phones, chargers, wallets, and even my father's camera. He's a photographer, and that week he had to attend a wedding. They didn't have enough time to steal all of it, so they just settled with some of my mom's jewelry and some pocket money. After seeing all this in my silly child mind, I rushed to my room to check my piggy bank. I always saved up money from whatever chores I did. It wasn't much, but it was my work and savings at the time, and I thought they stole it too. When I entered my room, I saw that the metal bars covering my windows had been cut open and my window broken. That's how they entered, through my room. My room is the only room facing the side of the building, and the one most secluded from views. Needless to say, I never felt safe in my own room again, which I had to live for the next 10 years of my life, until I finally moved in with my fiancée. The police arrived, and they started throwing white dust, and I have no idea what this is still, all over our house to find fingerprints. They took pictures, took our statements, analyzed my room and window. They were unable to catch the home invaders, but were able to tell us that this invasion was not the only one in our neighborhood. During that month, another 4 houses were broken into, one of them being the home of a cop. They told us that the invaders analyzed their victims, learned their schedules, and even knew where their children's rooms were, as they seemed to be entering the houses through the children's windows. All of the families affected by these guys had kids. They didn't expect us to be back that soon and panicked, hence one of them was holding the door with his body so that the others could flee. The person after which my dad was shouting was probably the one who had been holding the door and escaping last through the broken window. I don't know what could have happened if I didn't change my mind and give up on raiding for gear in PWI. I probably would have come face to face with these invaders. I'm happy I didn't, and I hope to God I never meet with them. My Parents' Haunted House by Twilight Dreamer 87. I am a 30-year-old woman, married, and recently had moved back in with my parents due to moving back to the town I grew up in. My husband and I are taking our time looking for our own place, due to wanting something nice in the area, and that's usually hard to find. This story takes place in my parents' house, starting back 10 years ago. A description of the house for a bit of content. It's a 2-story brick stone house in the city limits, but still surrounded by nothing but woods. You have to go through a garage that leads into the kitchen with the first bedroom to your left. Past the kitchen is the main living room, and to the right is the hall that is very open. In this area you will find the main dining room and second living area, but if you continue straight, you'll see the staircase to your left, and even further straight is my parents' bedroom and bathroom. Going up the stairs, you come to the third living area. Yeah, this is a huge house. It has 2 sets of French doors side by side that lead to the outside balcony. Going straight, a sharp left leads you to the 3 other bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. And this is where the story takes place. The first time I stepped foot into this house, I immediately felt off, like something just wasn't right. I felt a presence, but I didn't know what or who it was. I brushed it off thinking I was just reading too much into it. I continued to feel this way for the next couple of years, and because of this, I didn't enjoy much visiting them. Back then, my parents liked to gamble a lot, so they would ask me to babysit my baby brother and sister on the weekends. My boyfriend, now husband, loved them, so he would always babysit with me. The first few times, I really didn't pay attention to the feeling I would get because we would be busy playing or eating with the kids. After that, things kind of chilled out, and we would end up watching movies until it was time for all of us to go to bed. Now, my husband is a freak of nature. It's like he falls asleep the second his eyes are closed. Me, on the other hand, takes forever to get comfortable enough to wind my mind down. I also don't sleep well even when I do finally get to sleep. This one night was the first time I saw and heard something in this brand new house. In our room, the bed was facing the doorway, but not directly in front of it. With the double doors open, you can see the front of the staircase and all the way down the hallway. As long as the light is on, that is. On this night, only one of the hall lights was on. I was laying in bed with the TV on, but the volume down low, so I could hear it if one of the kids called me. I was almost asleep when I heard one of my siblings coming down the stairs. I opened my eyes a bit and waited for them to get to the bottom, but they never did. I didn't think anything of it, closed my eyes, and began to drift off. A few minutes later, I heard it again, so I opened my eyes and waited, but again, they never got to the bottom. This time I sat up and listened. A bit spooked, but nothing I couldn't handle. I got a bit nervous, but I still went and checked to see if they were there, and maybe if they were scared to come all the way down or something. No one was there. Confused and thinking I must be dreaming it all up, I went back to bed, this time closing one of the double doors. It was a few hours later, around 2:30, when I felt like someone was very near me, as if they were standing right next to the bed, right in front of me. Usually when I opened my eyes, I would see the green glow of the alarm clock on the bedside table, but this time I saw nothing. It was pitch black. I couldn't even see the hallway light on, and the TV had turned off on its own. I felt like I couldn't move. I was awake now and scared to the bone. I was finally able to call out my husband's name loud enough to wake him, and he reached over and turned on the light, and right then the scared feeling went away, and I was able to move. I freaked out and started crying. I couldn't begin to explain to him what happened because even if I had, he didn't believe in such things. So I told him I was having a nightmare and asked him to go check on the kids. When he came back, he said the kids were fine and got back into bed. With the light on, I was able to fall back asleep, but again, it took me forever. The next day, I told my mom about what had happened, and that's when she told me. She'd been hearing footsteps on the stairs at night and even saw someone standing by the door at times. She didn't tell anyone because she did not want to scare the kids, and this is when she told me what she had done. She wanted to know what was going on in her house, so she went and bought a voice recorder. One day, she decided to use it and went upstairs while everyone else was gone. She asked the typical questions like, "Who is here, and what do you want, and why are you here?" And then said, "You've passed away and need to go into the light. You're not welcome here." The next day, she decided to leave the recorder in one of the bedrooms upstairs while it was recording for about 4 hours while she was out running errands. I asked if she had checked it, and to my surprise, she said she was too afraid to listen to it alone. I wanted to listen to it, so off we went to the computer and began listening to it after it was uploaded. During the 4 hours she was gone, you could hear something clicking or tapping, the sounds of a drawer opening and closing, but we weren't really sure. Then we were listening to the part where she was asking questions, and now you could hear a sound that resembled a fan or maybe static throughout the whole thing, so some sounds were indistinguishable. But the one sound we did hear chilled us to the core. When she asked, "What do you want?" it gave us an answer. The answer was my brother's name, Jamie. It didn't answer any other questions except for that one. I immediately started crying. He wasn't having those night terrors for no reason. Something was there for him, every night. We soon asked a friend to cleanse the house, and for a long time everything was okay. My brother stopped having night terrors, my mom was able to sleep comfortably, and all was good again. Until now. I'd been living in this house for a month and a half, and for the last 3 weeks, I'd been seeing things everywhere, especially when I was alone. Because of this, I won't stay alone there anymore. I get the strong feeling of being watched, and I had the feeling of someone pulling on my blanket at night. I thought it was time for another cleanse. And just an FYI, I am the 3rd generation on my mother's side of the family that is able to see spirits. My dad's side of the family has, in the past before I was born, practiced black magic. I don't like speaking to them, and I won't dabble in any of that spiritual stuff most people do. I stay as far away from it as possible, and I recommend that you do too. Even if you're careful, these spirits can haunt for a long time, even long after you're gone. Quick update. So, one day I was sitting in the living room floor playing with my nephew. My mom was on the left couch and my sister was on the right couch. My nephew had a toy piano that is made of cloth and can be folded up. This piano was behind us in the corner with all my nephew's other toys. We were talking and watching my nephew attempt to walk, when the piano started making sounds. It's like someone was pressing the keys slowly. We stopped and stared and then looked at each other, shocked. Then the keys were pressed rapidly until it finally shut itself off on its own. My sister was terrified due to something happening to her last night around midnight that she didn't tell us about. Mom and I were not scared. Scary-ass Lyft ride. Submitted by Terrence. This was the last time I would ever use a ride-sharing app. My roommate and I had just gotten back from a college reunion in North Carolina, and we were shot from the flight and all of the craziness of the parties and stuff we had taken part in over the past few days. Even before we landed at SeaTech, we decided to get a Lyft ride as it was 1, cheap, and 2, faster than anything else. We just wanted to get back to our place in Belltown and run out for something to eat, and then meet up with some friends for some drinks. No big parties or anything. So my roommate Alex gets his phone out, and as soon as we land, fires up the Lyft app. There was no need for a luggage run, we just had our carry-ons, and we were ready to boogie out of there and get back home. It was about 7:30 and dark, and we go out to meet our driver who lets us know he's there. Young guy in a Ford Escape. He opens the gate, we throw our stuff in and sit back for the ride. It's about 30 minutes, and we're looking forward to a shower and then chilling with some buddies and ladies. At first I didn't notice, but the driver was taking surface streets. When I did notice, I asked him why we weren't getting on 5 North, and he said there was trouble on the highway and was going to skirt us around it and cut over through the Georgetown area to get back on I-5. We figured he was telling us the truth and let it slide. Big mistake. As we continued north, we got into South Park, and for those of you who don't know, it's a really, really ratty neighborhood. Alex and I were looking at each other and texting back and forth saying, "What the fuck are we doing here? This is bullshit," and so on. We hear another cell phone ring in the Escape, and the driver picks it up and says, "Yeah? I've got a fare. I can be back in like 25 minutes. Dude, I can't. Seriously." He stops talking, throws the phone down, and just mutters, "Fuck." We don't say anything, but in a couple of minutes he gets off 99 and makes a right and starts going through an industrial area before turning again. Alex asks, "Where the fuck are we going?" The guy says nothing and drives a bit more before coming to a really shitty house in a residential neighborhood and stops the car. He just says, "Hang on, you guys, I'll be right back," and hops out. We're sitting there dumbfounded and speechless. What the hell was going on? It's dark, this is not a good place to be, and I'll admit I was nervous as all hell. We sit there talking about how we know we can't just get out and look for another Lyft or Uber out here. I mean, fuck, I'm not going out there to get killed. About 5 minutes later, the driver comes running out of the house with a little duffel bag, jumps into the car, and takes off without shutting his door all the way. We hear pops from behind us and the sound of breaking glass. We're being shot at, and Alex and I yell out and duck as this fucking maniac is tearing ass away from the house and goes through a maze of streets for a few minutes. Then things got smoother. All the while, we're yelling out loud, "What the fuck are you doing? What the hell is going on?" I peek up, and we're back on 99 merging onto 599, and the driver is still silent. I'm not saying anything. I'm just texting Alex like mad, but he's not saying anything back. It was silence all the way to I-5, and now we know we're like 10 minutes from home. We're scared out of our minds, but we don't know what to do other than sit there and wait until this is all over. Finally, we got to our place. We just got out, opened the back, grabbed our shit without saying a word to the guy, and all he said was, "Sorry about that," and then drove off. I checked my phone, and we were charged for the ride, which I didn't say anything about as we ran to our place and practically dove inside. We were just sitting there like trying to catch our breath, so I got up and poured 2 Macallans neat and sat back down. I said, "We need to call the police." And Alex says, "I've been thinking about that. I don't think we should." I was like, "What the fuck, man? We almost just got killed." He was quiet for a moment and said, "Okay, say that guy gets arrested. He's obviously in deep with some shady shit, probably drugs, maybe something else. What do you think the guys he runs with are going to do when they find out? They know your name, your phone number, where you live, what you look like, and, no offense, me too." That sank in for a minute. He was right. We ended up calling our friends and telling them what happened and that we weren't going out. Lo and behold, our cool friends showed up at our place an hour later with libations and food to hang out with us. We ended up having an awesome night right in our own place, despite the scariest and frankly almost deadliest ride of our lives. I will never use Lyft or Uber or whatever else is out there, ever again. Creeper Attack, submitted by Hot Mama Judy. My story begins in Baltimore during the summer of 7th grade. I was living in the county right outside the city line, and according to most people, the safer area of Baltimore. I hadn't had the easiest life growing up, but it was definitely better than most of the kids I grew up with. I was a kid from a single-mom household only because my father died in a motorcycle accident when I was just 2 years old, so I was raised with my grandparents living in the same house just below in our in-law apartment. I was lucky to have awesome grandparents and lots of friends, so I got through the hard times easier than most of the kids around here. I had lost my pop 2 years earlier when this happened, and he was like my dad and the last of my family I had left. My mom was always more involved in my brother's needs than mine, and we didn't get along. I began to spiral into a bad place after losing the only dad I ever had, right when most girls really need them. I tried to keep being the tomboy who kicked butt and cared about nothing, but it wasn't as easy anymore because I had no one telling me I was beautiful, smart, or anything like that. I was alone now. I started drinking and smoking. I ran the streets and started kissing the boys I had always just hung out with or beat up. I was dealing with way too many things for a 13-year-old girl, and I tried to slow down and take a step back by getting into riding BMX with my friends. For my birthday, I had saved up $500 and I bought a brand new BMX, and I was determined to get good at riding it. I started riding it every morning from 5:45 and I would be out there in front of my house, but soon I got tired of being in the way of cars, so I decided to move my practice course to the local park a block away. Bright and early, I would get up, pull my bike out of the house, and ready to ride down the driveway to the park. I noticed this one day my cat was acting weird. As I started to go down the driveway, he kept running in front of me, almost getting run over by me. He had never done this before. I should have stopped right there and then and took it as a sign, but I called him some names and rode off instead. I got to the park and noticed several people there walking around and in their cars. A nurse in scrubs and a man walking his dog were there talking along with 5 other random people enjoying the morning. I made it around the track about 2 times before I noticed that there was only one person there now. This scruffy guy had come out of the path through the woods yelling, "Here, puppy," as I rode by. It seemed fishy, so I decided to leave, but I had to go around the track to leave, and I was just about to, when all of a sudden, the man runs down the hill, grabs me by the loop of my pants, and tears me from my bike. He threw me off it like a rag doll, and I screamed, "Fire! Rape! Help!" But then I felt him grab my hair and pound my head into the concrete path. I don't remember much after that, except that when I look back, I was floating above this guy on top of me, banging my head into the concrete, watching it like I was not in my body, seeing everything from a sky view. I don't know why, but it's like I couldn't take being in my body while he hurt me, so I left it the only way I could. After he was done destroying my self-worth and innocence, I remember waking up like a tornado, being sucked back into my body. I got up, grabbed my bike, and took off as fast as I could to my house. I got to my back steps and paused to cry, and as I looked up, there was the guy in the alleyway, staring at me. I ran into my house and woke my mom and called the police. They almost caught him, but he did get away. I felt like my whole life was over, and I just wanted to find a hole and be buried in it. I remember people who found out this happened saying horrible things to me like, "Well, he didn't rape you, so you should be thankful he didn't get your pants off." And some others saying, "Let this be a lesson on why you should go out alone when you're a girl." As a tomboy, I felt defeated. I went through a lifetime of bad decisions and men from this trauma, and after many years of therapy and growing up, I finally found myself again. I like to believe karma caught him quickly, and he never hurt anyone else, and if by chance he hears this, somehow he'll hear me say, "You, sir, are a coward and a giant piece of shit, and you better hope we never meet again." Mistaken Identity, submitted by Alex B. So, my story needs a bit of backstory about the area that I've been working in off and on for years now. Gallup, New Mexico is a strange town, predominantly Navajo and surrounded by reservations. Some of the people are very traditional Navajo and live way out in the middle of nowhere and are very superstitious and stick to the old ways. Others are more normal by American standards, but what I love and hate about the place is the fact that when I leave my apartment here, I usually come back with a story to tell. Another piece of info that will be relevant in this story later is that I am 6'5", muscular, bearded, and have sort of a lumberjack look. So, needless to say, I don't fit in. One evening, after a long day at work, I stopped by a grocery store to grab a few things. I'm walking through the aisles, minding my own business, when a skinny, odd-looking, balding, and middle-aged Navajo man starts hissing at me. It's hard to describe the hiss, but I will do my best. It was like he was imitating small gusts of wind with a hiss, kind of like short, sharp whoosh, whoosh. Well, this guy is hissing at me, so I just give him an odd look, but kept shopping. An aisle later, same thing. Whoosh, whoosh. I'm not kidding. This happened 2 or 3 more times in the store, and I just ignored the guy. So, I bought what I needed, and I was unloading my groceries into my truck, when I kid you not, this guy comes awkwardly running out of the store, right up to me. He didn't even check for traffic. Same thing. He looked me dead into the windows of my soul, and went whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. I was more confused than pissed, but I thought I'd take the low road. So I threw my last bag into the truck, looked at him, and angrily exclaimed, "What the fuck are you trying to say to me?" At that, he looked mortified and started backing up and shaking his head, softly saying, "No, no, no." Then he started walking in the direction of a van that had its door open, and a white lady who abandoned her groceries was walking towards me, looking concerned. I thought to myself, nope, not doing it, so I got into my truck and drove off. I'll be honest, I was thinking that maybe he was mentally handicapped and she was coming over to explain that to me. I wasn't ready to accept the fact that I may have just scared the shit out of someone like that. Years later, I'm recounting this story to some friends, one of who is from a tribe near there. I'll call my friend Ted. Ted is an Isleta Indian, and they and the Navajo share a lot of traditional beliefs, and he too had spent a lot of time in Gallup, New Mexico. Another piece of info about Ted is that his dad was a respected medicine man for the tribe and was well versed in the superstitions. He put my mind at ease and explained that I didn't threaten a handicapped person. He explained that some of the people there believe strongly in skinwalkers, which I don't need to explain as there are many stories about them on this channel. Ted told me that as large and out of place as I was, in my work clothes and beard and blonde hair and blue eyes, well, he took it upon himself to blow his divine wind at me and get me and my evil to leave the store. The fact that I said nothing to him reinforced his beliefs, and when I finally said something, I guess it just caught him off guard and scared the hell out of him. That's just a theory, but I prefer that one over the thought that I was picking on a small, mentally handicapped guy. I thought your listeners will like this story because there are plenty of people on here claiming to have seen skinwalkers, but nobody yet has claimed to be the potential villain in someone else's story. Mingy's Bed by Adicor. This happened to a friend of mine. She told me about it a year or so ago. We'll call her Mingy. Mingy was in her late 20s and worked as an English tutor in South Korea. One evening a few years ago, she was tutoring a high school boy, and they were up studying pretty late. The buses had stopped running. Being a long way from his house, the boy asked her if he could crash on her floor overnight and get the first bus the next morning. Mingy was very reluctant because inviting a teenage male student to stay the night didn't sound like a great idea. But he was begging her, and eventually she relented. They went back to her one-room apartment, and she got into bed while he laid out a blanket on the floor, and they both fell asleep. A few hours later, at maybe 2 a.m., the boy wakes Mingy up. "I'm really hungry," he said. "Well, let's go get some food." Mingy opened her eyes and looked at him in disbelief. "Food? Now? It's 2 a.m. Go back to bed." But the student insisted. "No, I'm so hungry. Let's eat something now." She told him that there was some ramen in the kitchen and he could fix some himself. That didn't satisfy him. He didn't want ramen. He said, "There's a 24-hour place just down the road. Let's go there." Eventually, after several minutes of persuasion, the boy got Mingy to go with him to the restaurant. So they left the apartment and started heading out. As soon as they were on the street, the boy turned to Mingy and said, "I'm not hungry. I woke up in the middle of the night and looked under your bed. There's a man sleeping there." They called the police and discovered that a homeless man had been living in Mingy's apartment, sleeping under her bed for over 2 months. The boy only saw him because he was lying on her floor, so he had a clear view under the bed. The police arrested the man, and thankfully there were no other issues. But that's by far the creepiest thing that's ever happened to anyone that I know. Hey gang, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're a faithful listener, you'll know that I'm going back and finding my favorite classics and putting them into new episodes. The story about Mingy and the guy under the bed is one of my favorites, and I just had to add it here. Hope you enjoyed it. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel, and hey, why not leave a comment below? I respond to them all. If you'd like to take it a step further, consider becoming a patron of this page. Go to truescarystories.net and click on the support page for a direct link to my Patreon page. For as little as $1 a month, you can help keep this channel ad-free. And hey, there's some other perks in it as well. Follow me on social media. Links to that are in the description below. And of course, don't forget, the big Halloween extravaganza is coming up. Volume 3 is coming together nicely, but I'd still like to hear your stories. If you've got a cool, scary Halloween story, email unclejoshtruescarystories@gmail.com. And of course, if you have any kind of scary story, send it my way. I read them all. Everyone, be excellent to each other. And until next time, remember, be wary of things that go bump in the night. It could be anything. A ghost, a monster, or the guy next door.